for real estate agents and what they need to read in order to become an agent. And everyone says in order for you to get in real estate, you have to get your real estate license. And that's definitely not true. But I figured, hey, if that is why people, that is what people are recommending, why is that? What do they really learn? And after interviewing people for the past 3 years on affordable housing podcast, I just wish at some point someone could explain all these concepts in very simple layman terms that even a fifth grader can understand. Because in order for me to master something, I have to learn how to teach this back to my kids and all of our kids. So today I'm gonna come with some analogies, and if you have better analogies, I would definitely really appreciate if you can leave a comment down below with some good analogies on how to explain all these concepts and terms in real estate. Because I'm just trying to become a better dad. And you always think about what are you leaving for your kids? And there's nothing more valuable than being able to leave the skills and information, because every day's not guaranteed, and there is a chance that my time can come sooner than I expected. And it would be a shame if I didn't leave all this information for the people that we love. All right, so let's talk about writing the offer and closing the sale today. Because if you're looking to buy or invest in property, right, or you're just curious about how deals get finalized, stick around for today, right? We're going to explore how to go through and come up with a solid offer. We're going to walk through the purchase agreement, and I'm even going to talk to you about the different closing techniques that they had in some of these textbooks. It's kind of crazy that they teach this stuff, but I'm also not very confident that I agree with those closes. So let's start off at the very high level, right? Why does writing a strong offer matter? And the reason is that your offer sets the tone for the entire transaction, right? It will outline the price, the timing, any special requests, for example, repairs or whether or not their appliances are going to be included or whether or not the staged furniture is going to be included, right? When your offer is clear and fair, then sellers going to take you more serious. And that helps the negotiations go smoother so that they know exactly what matters to your buyer, and then it's a back and forth, right? Then it's a dance. I like to talk about the offer as if it's a recipe for baking a cake or a cookie, right? Every ingredient, from how much to when you do or put in that ingredient, that matters. It's got to be the right amount, right? Because you need baking to be precise, because otherwise it usually doesn't come out right, either in terms of texture or taste. So I was thinking about the show Beat Bobby Flay, and a lot of people try to beat him by using baking as an example, because baking requires you to be more precise. Cooking, there's a little bit more art to it because you can kind of wing it and taste the difference and adjust as needed. But it's really hard when you have to get your batter correct and then you just throw it in the oven, because there's really not much you can do after it's baked, right? So, next thing we want to talk about is the purchase agreement. I want to highlight a couple of key sections, right? Obviously, it's going to include the address, the purchase price, how much are you putting down for your earnest money deposit, what are the financing terms, what contingencies do you have in place, right? Whether or not there is a financing contingency for a loan approval or an inspection contingency, right? I've put in offers where I had an escalation clause when the housing market was very hot, and we said, hey, we'll automatically beat the highest offer that you got up to this certain price, right? There's so many things you can put into an offer. Obviously, you want to have the closing date in there, right? So look at my notes here. Okay, so this is a document that protects both the buyer and the seller by laying out exactly who does what and when. And I really want to talk about a couple of sections, right? There's the property description. Usually you have a title company to help you go through this and be the third party verification, but you should probably double check it yourself, because when a deed transfers, right, the property description with the lot and block and the legal address, they got to match exactly, right? The price and the terms, that matters a lot, obviously, because your initial offer might get you back a counter offer. Could happen. Then there are contingencies. This is so important because when the market was really hot, people were sending in offers without an inspection contingency, without a financing contingency, without an appraisal contingency. That's, I think if you do it without an inspection contingency, it's, personally, I know why people do it because they want their offer to get accepted and they were so desperate. But I think it's really irresponsible as an agent for, unless your buyers are like really experienced, right? To put in an offer without an inspection contingency. Because how else do you know what you're buying, right? Sometimes you look at a property from just the photos and you have no idea what's happening with the property, right? The photos could be a year old, or they don't take a good picture of the roof, and now you obviously look at the roof, and now all of a sudden the roof is coming apart, and now you realize that you got to spend like $10,000-$15,000 just to replace the roof. Or maybe you found termite damage, and now it needs to be remediated, right? Or you found foundation issues. If you need to get a structural engineer involved, I mean that could be really costly. Like fixing foundation issues are, it's a very niche skill set. Now, obviously, on the seller side, if you're taking an offer and there's an inspection contingency, essentially that buyer can back out of the deal for any reason if they just found anything wrong. And that's the unfortunate part. But I like to coach the sellers like, hey, put yourself in the buyer's shoes, right? You would want to make sure you know what you're buying, right? You want to know what the condition of the water heater is, what the condition of the air ducts are, what does the insulation look like? What does a water heater look like? What other expenses do I need to anticipate upon closing the deal that I need to spend money on top of just buying the property? Because sometimes you don't get to finance those types of repairs, right? Or if you're a buyer and you had an inspection, you say, hey, I would still buy the property if I can get a credit for this, or this is repaired before I close. That is the different amount of contingencies in place. I like to tell people that, hey, if you're a buyer, once your offer gets accepted, you actually now have the leverage, right? Because you could back out. Obviously, as a seller, you should be getting backup offers, right? So this is how you balance having leverage on both sides and being fair, right? At the end of the day, we're all human beings. Let's try to be fair. So if you don't have a financing contingency, right? We just talked a lot about inspection. You don't have a financing contingency. Imagine you don't get approved for a loan. I mean, where are you gonna find the money to buy the property now if you don't have the cash on hand, right? Then you risk losing your earnest money deposit if you did not have that financing contingency there. Then there's the appraisal contingency, which I think is pretty big, especially when prices kept going up and up and up and up. If the lender's third party appraiser says the home that you're buying is not worth the amount that you're paying for it, they're going to lower their amount and you're going to have to close that gap because they're going to lend up to 80% of the home value. So let's say you have a home that's $1 million and they were going to give you a loan for $800,000, right? If you get a loan for $800,000, but now the home appraises for only $900,000, and they only are going to lend up to 80% of that, take 900 grand times 0.8, that's 720 grand. They just lowered their loan amount by $80,000. Do you have enough to fill that gap? And that is what they mean by an appraisal contingency. Okay. All right. Now, this is what I considered the purchase Romans. The purchase agreement is a roadmap essentially with clear exit ramps, right? Those are the contingencies. If you want to get off the highway and not buy the deal anymore, well, you can use your contingencies and back out of the deal, right? You can safely leave the road without any trouble. All right, third section. We talk about earnest money and deposits. So earnest money is typically what they call is good faith money. That earnest money shows the seller that you're serious. And it's usually deposited to open escrow and it's held in escrow until closing. Because if the deal falls through due to a contingency that both sides agreed on, you can get it back. But if you back out for no reason, you can lose it. So incentivizes the buyer. Hey, if you had a financial contingency, you should be putting your best foot forward to actually get the loan, right? You have to actually submit the loan application, as an example. All right. So I like to think of when you're a fifth grader, I like to think of earnest money deposit as putting like a seat saver on a bench, right? You're saving a seat for your friend at lunch or at the park or at the picnic, right? It shows that you're committed to sit there. But if you wander off for a reason and no one knows that you're saving a seat, someone can claim that seat. Okay. Just like you're at a movie theater, you try to claim a seat, but someone's like, oh, is this seat open, right? You kind of have to be there. I'm not sure if that's the best example, but I was trying to think about an analogy that would work for a fifth grader. Okay. Just let me know if you have better analogies. All right, let's talk about the different approaches to closing a sale, right? They list out in this textbook like some of the closes. They call it, one is the summary close. You list the benefits, you discuss the price, the location, the time frame, and then you just politely assume that the buyer is going to agree to move forward. Interesting, right? Then there's the other close that's called the assumptive close, right? You act as though the buyer already said yes. So they say, "Hey, should I send the email to your email? Should I send the contract to your email now for a quick review?" Right? You're assuming that the seller is going to make an offer. Interesting, right? Then what else to talk about? The alternative close, and that's where they say, "Hey, would you prefer to close in 30 days or 45 days?" Notice the option wasn't to do you want to make an offer or not? It was do you want to close in 30 or 45 days? And that moves the sale along. Interesting, right? And I'm really talking about this so that I know I can teach all of our kids. If it's happening to you, you have to recognize it. And it's okay if they're trying it, but you should recognize what's happening instead of just going along with it, right? So you can pause, take a deep breath before you decide how to proceed. And instead of just falling victim to the line of questioning or the sequencing of questions that's coming your way. All right. Then they have an urgency clause, right? Where they say, hey, you gotta put in an offer now, right? There's a special interest rate, or this is the last home in this development, that's the last brand new home. They're trying to encourage a quicker yes. So just be very, very cautious about it. And when I think of closes, right, I like to think of closing techniques as different ways you might want to persuade your friend to go to the movies, right? If they're indecisive, you must say, okay, so are we going to watch movie A or movie B, right? Or maybe, hey, let's go watch this one. Do you want me to buy you popcorn or do you want me to buy you an icy? I don't know. But there are different techniques to get someone to just move along the process and essentially almost like picking for them. And in this case, you're picking them to make an offer. You're assuming that they're going to make an offer. All right. So let's talk about the next part of the process. When you get when you put in an offer, a seller could probably accept, reject, or counter offer, right? Counter offer might tweak the price. They might say, hey, I don't like that contingency. We don't want it. And once you get a counter offer, right, your first offer is off the table, right? It's canceled. You have to make sure that you have to keep your emotions in check. Focus on the numbers and the facts. This is what exactly why I was talking a lot about underwriting deals and learning how to analyze deals so that a deal that might be a deal for you might not be a deal for somebody else. So I know buying a home is a pretty big emotional decision. I remember the first time I put an offer onto a property, I couldn't sleep the entire night. I was nervous. I was also excited. So it's hard to stay calm, but self awareness is probably your best friend to recognize when you're getting emotional and how to calm yourself down and rely on your criteria that you probably discuss with your significant other about how to proceed based on what you guys agreed on. And okay, it's okay. And if you get new information, you can tweak it, you can change your approach a little bit. But in large, hopefully you had the discussion when things weren't so rushed and things felt a little bit more calm. All right. So I like to think of this as the counter offer is almost like trading Pokemon cards, right? You might not get your friend's super rare holographic card unless you offer something equally compelling, right? You keep adjusting both of your offers until both sides feel like it was a fair deal and both sides got what they wanted, right? It's an emotion deal. Who's to say that Charizard is worth more than that Blastoise? Just making up names here, but it's just same concept. Now, once all the price and the terms are all set, the final steps before closing, right? You're going to go to inspections. You're going to sign off on the inspection contingency, right? You get a commitment to close from your lender, right? You get the final loan approval documents, and you're going to talk about any repairs that either the seller must handle or give you a credit for. On the title company side, they're going to check for liens, ownership titles, right? They're going to try to make sure that the title is clean, is the word. Make sure that no one else has a lien against the property. And that helps ensure that the property is clear to transfer ownership to the buyer. Then finally, on a closing date, usually there's mobile notaries that come to your house to sign like hundreds of pages of documents, and that's where the funds will get transferred, and you become the official owner of that beautiful home that you wanted. So your family can move in, or your significant others, and that's how you finalize a sale, right? It gets all recorded at the county level, and this is the hurrah moment to celebrate. And I know that was a pretty long process, pretty extensive, but I think it all goes back to, and I can't stress this enough, is writing a solid offer, knowing what your walkaway number is, knowing what your contingencies are, right? It's non negotiable for you to not have an inspection contingency. So, if an agent, right, you have to understand an agent only gets paid if you close. But is the agent really looking out for you? Because if an agent tells you not to purchase a property or write an offer without an inspection contingency, at bare minimum, they better disclose to you what the risks are. And those are really, really big risks. And it's just something that I can't really stomach unless I know that my client is an investor or they have a great eye for recognizing the condition of the home with trusted subcontractors that can quickly look at a property and say, hey, that roof is going to cost you X amount of dollars. That plumbing issue is going to cost you X amount of dollars. That electrical upgrade with the electric panel is going to cost you X amount of dollars. These are all important items. And if they don't know that, or if the client doesn't know that, I would be very cautious about any agent that tells you to make an offer without a contingency in place. All right. It just doesn't seem fiscally responsible. So hopefully this helps, right? Talked a lot about closing techniques. So now you know exactly or recognize when it's happening to you so that you can navigate the sequencing questions calmly. All right. I hope this was helpful for everybody. This was an amazing conversation. I really love this doing this live stream with all of you because it teaches me, it forces me to learn how to explain things better and keep all of our kids entertained. And hopefully this was helpful for everybody. We've been going live for 552 days. I'm so grateful for all of you tuning into the lives and supporting the podcast. If you can, I would really appreciate you guys to leave a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts for the Affordable Housing and Real Estate Investing podcast, because that would mean a lot. That would help spread the word, and that will help more people get into affordable housing and create more affordable housing. So I appreciate all of you. Without people like you, I would have never had the home I grew up in. I appreciate you all so much. I'll see you tomorrow for day 553. And again, this is not legal advice. I'm not an attorney. This is not investment advice. I'm not soliciting any investments on this call. I'm not an agent as of this live recording. So have an amazing day. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Have a good one, everybody.